Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Anu Sood and I'm the Global Channel Marketing Manager at Skywave. I'm very excited to be talking to you today since we will be talking about our latest model in the iSet Data Pro series of satellite terminals. Called the IDP 800, this new low-profile terminal is designed to track and monitor mobile assets like containers and trailers. So in today's presentation, we're going to give you the inside scoop on the uses, features, and benefits of this new terminal. But before we start, a little housekeeping. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can tweet them to us. Our Twitter ID is @Skywavemobile, and the hashtag is SkywavewEbinar. Okay, the agenda for today's webinar. First, we'll talk about the terminal, look at its dimensions, features, and the actual service. We'll also look at the target markets, and finally, what makes this terminal special and how it will be used in the market. First of all, here's what the terminal looks like. It is the first terminal with a very slim profile that supports the iSet Data Pro satellite service. The form factor is really designed to fit in the grooves of containers and trailers, so excellent for tracking these highly mobile assets that are often in remote regions of the world. The integrated battery compartment allows it to operate on battery alone, and that is regular off-the-shelf AA batteries and not custom battery packs. It can also run on vehicle power, but we'll cover that later in the presentation. And finally, it has also been designed with ease of installation in mind, and we'll talk about how to install this terminal. The IDP 800 has been designed to allow customers to gain better visibilities of the location of their assets. And by leveraging some of the other features in the terminal, and of course the application provided by solution providers, and customers can be armed with information on how to improve business operations and manage risk. So this terminal is part of a bigger portfolio of products that enable remote monitoring capabilities for a variety of assets where communication was previously not affordable or available. For those of you who are new to the IDP family of terminals, we have a modem that's designed to be integrated into larger systems. But by far the most popular terminals are the IDP 680 LAN terminal for tracking and managing mobile assets, as well as monitoring and controlling fixed assets. So applications include tracking vehicles, monitoring pipelines, and water meters. The C1D2 version of the terminal can also be used in SCADA applications like compressor monitoring. The IDP 690 can be used in all the same applications as the IDP 680, but with the Helix antenna, it is better suited for maritime applications. Finally, the IDP 780 is a dual satellite cellular terminal that's designed for customers who want to leverage cellular connectivity for fleet management applications, as well as fixed installations that require redundant communications. The target markets for the IDP 800 is primarily trailers and containers. And we'll talk about benefits for this market in a customer use case scenario. But the terminal can also be used for maritime applications, as well as tracking heavy equipment and other vehicles in the mining and oil and gas sector. So we'll talk about how some of the features in the IDP 800 benefit these markets. So here's a summary of what makes the IDP 800 terminal different and better than some of the other container tracking terminals in the market today. First of all, it supports two-way communication. Not only will you receive reports from the terminal as to the location of the terminal, you can also send messages to the terminal to locate its position. And because the terminal uses the iSet Data Pro Inmarsat service, the IDP 800 can track assets anywhere in the world, especially where cellular service is not available. The terminal offers many features, but some of the features that set it apart from other trailer tracking solutions is first of all the onboard GPS, the accelerometer for detecting start and stops, and finally the serial, analog, and digital inputs and outputs for connecting to sensors. In the subsequent section, we are going to talk about how these three features allow customers to have functions that provide meaningful data about what is happening with the trailer and container, as well as help to conserve battery power and reduce airtime. As we mentioned earlier, the terminal is powered by AA batteries. And later in this presentation, we'll talk about what kind of batteries we recommend and some examples of how long they will last, depending on how often you're sending position messages. Before we continue, I'm aware that not all of you are familiar with ISAT Data Pro, so just a quick primer on what the satellite service offers. It's a service designed for M2M or machine-to-machine applications. It's not a satellite broadband service. In fact, it's designed for applications that require the equivalent of a text message. But unlike traditional SMS that only supports 160 characters, the ISAT Data Pro service is a two-way satellite service that supports sending up to 6.4 kilobytes to the terminal and receiving 10 kilobytes. Now, when it comes to the speed of the service, it is one of the fastest services in its class, with a latency of 15 seconds for 100 bytes and 45 seconds for 1,000 bytes. Finally, ISAT Data Pro is a global service, so it's available for both land-based and maritime applications. There are also no roaming charges, so you can move between countries and continents, and you don't have to worry about changing carriers or additional charges. I mentioned in the feature list that the terminal has an onboard GPS that did all the position calculations right in the terminal. The benefit of this feature is that functions based on position of the asset can be done without sending GPS information over the air, and then having a web-based application decide what action needs to be done. So let me explain further. In this example, the terminal can be programmed to transmit every hour once it's outside the truck yard. But when it is within the truck yard, the terminal will only send a message once a day. How the onboard GPS fits into this scenario is that the GPS position is calculated directly in the terminal, and it can be compared to the approved geofences that are programmed inside the terminal. The terminal then automatically adjusts the reporting frequency. If there wasn't an onboard GPS and geofencing, the terminal would have to keep sending the position information to an external application that would then determine whether the trailer is inside or outside the yard and what is the right reporting frequency. Now, not only does this affect how quickly the terminal reacts to changes in position, it also affects how much airtime is used. So onboard GPS is a feature that offers many benefits. The IDP 800 can also be programmed to transmit differently, depending on whether the truck is turned on or off. So for example, with the Auto Detect Power feature, when the vehicle is powered, the terminal can be programmed to send a message every hour. But when the vehicle is stopped and unpowered, the terminal can scale down the reporting to once a day. Of course, this behavior is all very programmable, and you can change the reporting period to anything that suits your customer needs. The two main reasons that we want to use this feature is that it saves battery power and airtime costs. So it extends the battery life and reduces your monthly expenditures. Another feature that saves battery power and airtime is the accelerometer that detects start and stop. So similar to the previous example, but instead of detecting whether the vehicle is powered or not, the terminal can be programmed to have different reporting periods depending on whether it's moving or not. This feature is particularly suited for containers that don't have access to power sources and must be very conservative for their battery use. When looking at understanding what is happening in and around the truck, the digital and analog input-output ports on the IDP 800 can be used for connecting to external sensors and then report when they change states or cross thresholds. So in this example, we chose to show how a door opening sensor can be used to detect when cargo doors are opened and closed. Combine that with geofences of approved areas for loading and unloading cargo, and suddenly you have a vehicle system that detects when cargo is being stolen. But the use of inputs and outputs does not have to be restricted to security applications. You can use the analog port for temperature sensors for monitoring the transport of refrigerated goods. You can also use the digital ports for detecting when containers are empty, to ensure that you're minimizing the time that the container is empty, or what the industry sometimes calls empty miles. For the most part, as long as you've got a sensor, it can be connected to the IDP 800, and the states reported the frequency required by the customer. Other features in the IDP 800 that are possible, again for the security sector, include the ability to detect if someone is trying to steal the vehicle and disabling the tracking terminal. By checking when the power to the IDP 800 is being cut, you can get notifications of a possible security event. In some parts of the world, GPS jamming is a common technique used by criminals to block fleet managers from determining the location of trucks. Once the GPS signal has been successfully blocked, cargo can be stolen, and the fleet manager has absolutely no idea where the theft has occurred. The IDP 800 has the ability to detect when GPS jamming is in progress and can send an emergency notification to the fleet manager. Moving away from land-based transport, when looking at the maritime sector, the IDP 800 is ideal for small vessels with no power. It's particularly useful for the fishing sector when many of the vessels are small and power and installation space is a premium. So the integrated battery and standalone operation makes it easier to install and operate. As an add-on, because the IDP 800 has an RS-232 interface, you can add a mobile data terminal to use for sending and receiving messages. So the terminal has both tracking and communication applications. Because the IDP 800 uses the ISAT Data Pro service, which has global coverage even across oceanic regions, the device is also useful as a maritime safety device. For example, using the digital input port, the IDP 800 can be wired with a panic button. How the terminal behaves when the panic button is pressed is something that's programmable. So for example, you can have the terminal send its position every 5 minutes when the panic button is hit. You can also have the terminal turn on a light, and when the distress signal is acknowledged, then turn off the light. So the possibilities are endless. We've been talking a lot about how the terminal has an integrated battery compartment and that many of the features are designed to save battery. I do want to note that beyond the terminal features, there are a lot of features on the satellite network that help to reduce power consumption. For example, with ISAT Data Pro, there are no mailbox checks. The hardware, network, and gateway are highly synchronized so that when the terminal wakes up from a power saving or sleep mode, the gateway immediately delivers the message. This reduces both airtime and power consumption because you're not sending a satellite message to do a mailbox check. In terms of battery, the IDP 800 can use both non-rechargeable and rechargeable battery. You do have to know in advance which one you're using, since there are different order codes for the two different versions. With regards to battery chemistry, Skyway recommends the Energizer Ultimate Lithium non-rechargeable batteries and the Tenergy Low Self-Discharge for rechargeable batteries. The chemistry type and capacity are shown in this chart. We have also demonstrated what we expect is the life of these batteries with different reporting periods. So with position reports once per day, we expect the life to be 3 years. Increasing the reporting to every 15 minutes, and the battery life changes to about a month. Of course, you know that battery life is highly susceptible to the environment, so extreme heat and cold can affect the life of the batteries. Now, to make your job a little easier in terms of estimating how long batteries will last, Skywave has developed a battery calculator that can be used by all of our solution providers. Ease of installation is one of those key benefits of the IDP 800. The terminal has rivet holes, but also an installation bracket that uses VHB tape, so no screws, rivets, welds, or other forms of mechanical fasteners are required. The main thing to keep in mind is that even with the installation bracket, the height of the terminal is just slightly over 1 inch, so you don't have to worry about the terminal being knocked off when going under bridges or other structures. For those of you who do not want to install the IDP 800 terminal outside, there are remote antenna options. Like the IDP 800, they are IP67 certified, and the customer has the option to choose between the standard antenna and the low elevation antenna. At this point, let's talk about use cases. So let's look at how customers use low-profile satellite antennas. The first case is all about trailer tracking. So in this case, the transport company wanted to provide greater reliability and accountability to their customers. They also wanted to improve efficiency of operation, which means locating missing trailers, tracking how long they're at the customer sites, and redeploying the trailers once they're empty. So the solution was to add a low-profile terminal to all trailers, and in conjunction with a web-based application, the transport company was able to notify customers when shipments were scheduled to be delivered or had reached the destination. Can also see how long trailers had been at the customer site, know when to retrieve them, and put the trailer back in service. And finally, the transport can monitor driving habits to ensure safety of driver. So look for events like harsh braking, speeding, and other events. The solution also offers multi-year operation on a single set of batteries, since coordinating battery change is sometimes a difficult task. Now, the solution is also versatile enough to be used for both containers and trailers, so a great intermodal solution. So in the second example, we're going to look at how the low-profile terminal can benefit a customer that is monitoring rail cars. In this case, the electricity producer needed a way to track rail cars. So while many areas of the rail network had RFID, there were an even greater number of areas that had blind spots. Adding more RFID readers was too cost prohibitive, and using cellular networks was not a possibility due to coverage as well as the drain on batteries. So this is where the low-profile satellite terminal along with the application comes in. Once installed on all the rail cars, the electricity producer was able to view location of the rail cars regardless of the location of the RFID readers, as well as locate idle cars and get them back on the line to move product and increase the company's profitability. Because of the low power capabilities of the terminal, the electricity producer can track rail cars for multiple years on a single battery. They can also connect sensors like temperature or cargo sensors for more detailed visibility of what's happening in and around the rail car. So that concludes my presentation on the introduction of the IDP 800. Before I leave you with some resources, I want to remind you of some of the reasons why you should choose the IDP 800. So the first is that it uses the Inmarsat constellation, which has a life expectancy beyond any other global constellation. That means the investment you make today will still be viable more than a decade from now. The IDP 800 offers two-way communication, so it's just not about receiving position reports. You can also poll the terminal when you need to know the position of the asset outside of the normal reporting period. You can also reprogram the terminal without having to bring it back to the shop. I talked extensively about battery power and configuration options. The IDP 800 can use both non-rechargeable and rechargeable batteries that are charged by vehicle power. You can also use the terminals to detect when it's switching to backup batteries when vehicle power is cut. The accelerometer allows you to check when the vehicle starts or stops, so you can have the terminal report event changes or changes reporting frequency depending on whether it's moving or stopped. The availability of 3 inputs/outputs and RS-232 interface allow connection to sensors, so you don't have a terminal for position reports only. You have a terminal that has longevity and flexibility as the customer's needs grows. And finally, the slim profile. With the integrated battery compartment neatly tucked beside the communication modem means you have a device that can be easily installed on trailers and containers. You can download our latest application profile called Satellite for Railcar Tracking and Usage Optimization. The link can be found on the webinar playback page. We also have more information on our public sites. Our website, skywave.com, has a number of white papers, case studies, and application profiles. You can also send us specific questions via email at marketing@skywave.com. And finally, we post a lot of industry news and Skywave updates through our Twitter feed, which is @SkywaveMobile. On behalf of Skywave, thank you once again for your participation, and we hope to hear from you again.